Hello everyone. I'm back today with the next update about Project Sunrise. Hopefully my mic is a bit better this time. So it's been a while since the last video, which was still before the public release. I meant to make a video a lot sooner updating on what's going on with Sunrise, but sadly I was very busy and didn't find the time. One of the test builds that I made actually got leaked, which is why the sudden release happened. I decided to push ahead with an early release instead of waiting because I did not want that leaked test build to go around and maybe cause problems. I did not want to have people trying and selling it or distributing malware, which would probably have happened sooner or later. So I just decided to release the version that I currently had, which had some issues. Thankfully, everything went pretty well as far as I know, and we got everything kind of sorted. But this also means that the state that Sunrise was released in was not the intended state, and also I had a lot more to do the coming days, the coming weeks, instead of focusing on just developing, which took away a little bit of time. But that's kind of besides the point. Today, I'm here to update you on what's going on with Sunrise and what's going to happen next. First of all, I want to thank everyone who has been involved in this project. It's been a very positive experience for me. And thanks to all the contributors, everyone who has made a good PR, who has dug out info and sent it over, or who's made good suggestions, bug reports, or helped in other ways. I'm very thankful. And also, thanks very much to everyone who has worked on Destiny 2 previously. Before I started this project, there was already a ton of useful information out there. And I want to thank everyone who was working on that for a long time. Definitely would have taken a lot longer and been a lot harder to make this possible without that. Now, on to the next thing, where we are at with Sunrise right now. So I've already said this probably a million times, but Sunrise initially was never even meant to be kind of in the public eye. It was always meant to be open source, but it was just kind of meant for me to experiment with the game and try to load into these old destinations that I'm so nostalgic about. But as it turns out, a lot of people were really interested in that topic. So as soon as I started sharing the first progress screenshots in some servers and asking for some stuff, a lot of people kept asking me, when can I play this? When can I try this? Please release it. So that's why the initial target changed from just me messing around, writing some code and getting into a world to actually releasing a mod can be installed standalone and that doesn't violate anything if I release it fully and that people can install and play with. Now the goalpost has moved again, and instead of this exploration mod, which we have mostly finished right now, we're going for a more complete implementation. Now, how complete will we ever get this? I don't know. I honestly could not tell you, but I've been working hard the past weeks to get the initial scripting API laid out and kind of started working on it. The scripting will be here to enable the community to rescript every mission. Most of the assets are inside of the game, and there's a lot of client-side code that is there, but there is parts missing. The mission scripts are not there. They're only on the servers, and we do not have them. So we will need to put those together again from scratch completely without any help, without anything that we can look at, except old videos. So what I'm working on right now is the tools and the scripting VM itself for the Sunrise. So you can write mission scripts in Lua and put the missions back into the game. I will not be recreating any missions myself. I'll leave that to others. Aside from some proof of concept and tutorials, I will not be working on that, but I will try to make the tools as easy as possible to use for everyone else. At this point, I also want to point out that thanks to a lot of contributors, we have gotten a lot more of the investment or inventory logic working. As you can see, I can go into my inventory and switch stuff around. It's a different weapon. And right now, this is still very limited in the current build. But there's a lot of PRs open to get all these other pages working again. Once we get this to a point where everything works close to fully, there will also be a persistent save file that actually saves the changes that you make instead of being loaded from the config, which is quite an easy change. The reason I haven't done it yet is because it's harder to edit than a normal JSON file. And so I want to make sure everything in-game actually works before I make that change. Once we get that far and some missions are working, it will also be possible to play some kind of single player experience. Now, this is still weeks to months away, so don't get too excited, but we are slowly inching towards that goal. For my part, here's what I've been up to. As you can see, I've been working on the activity host here, and I've been working on generating an SDK for the scripting. This means that all the information for every activity, for every destination, for every map will be extracted from the game into a form that you can then build script against to activate these behaviors. Right now, we're still in the early stages of this, and the scripting itself is not all there yet. But as you can see, I've also made some development tools to make this easier. For example, here I have enabled overlays for all the spawn anchors in the map. It acts on a radius, so it will show right now everything within 50 units of me. This is both for enemies and for friendly NPCs. As you can see, for example, I can go up here and get vendor falling conflict. Now I can search this up. And I already have the endpoint to spawn in this NPC. Now, as you can see, animations and a bunch of other stuff is still missing, but the spawning itself, as well as the voice lines, is already here. This is implemented through the network. This is not a client-side spawn like we've seen other people make. This is an accurate representation of what a real mission host or activity host would send to the client. It's a network interaction that causes the client to spawn in the character.
Be careful out there. Come now, speak your mind.
Right now, this is not working yet, but we also have a PR for that in progress. Now, I've showed this for the vendor NPC, but the same thing also goes for enemies as well. For example, let me go over here. Let's see what we have here. We got some business simple squad. Find that. Simple squad. Which one was it? 0. Okay. Looks like I do not have the data for this ones. As I've said, some data is still missing. So this business simple squad, don't have the data for that. Let's see what else this has. Business all simple squad. Also no data here. There is some here that I did have the data for, and that I know I can show off, which I think is from a public event or something like that. This is the SQ Servio. There we go. And this spawns in the enemy with the correct parameters, name, everything. And this is also completely only through one network request. There's no kind of client modification to make this happen. This is all the intended way. As you can see, it also drops ammo. So pretty much everything related to this is working already. The enemy AI is not 100% figured out yet. There is different stages and different behaviors there that I'm still reversing at the moment. And this is only the first step in making mission scripts possible. This, what I've shown here, is one API endpoint for the activity host scripts that lets it spawn in and monitor so-called squads in the world. We also have a list of squads, which is mostly complete, as you saw before, still missing a little bit of data on some of the enemies. But this list can also then be built as an SDK inside of the scripts. So you don't have to play with magic numbers, but you can actually use named squads, spawn them in, react to them, and so on. Now, everything else is not figured out yet. This is the first step, but this is also the one that I was the least certain about. I was not quite sure how much of this is actually on the client or if there's anything that the physics host is required for. I'm still not 100% sure if we need some kind of physics host implementation for pathfinding and some of the enemy AI behavior, but I'm pretty certain now that we do not need a full simulation on the physics host, which is already a great step in the right direction. Now, as for the next point, which I also wanted to talk about, is the multiplayer. Right now, everything that is happening here is completely offline, completely contained to your client. Even the so-called server components, like the activity host, is running inside of your own client, which we have just added onto the client. As for multiplayer, there is no plans to ever have any kind of dedicated server or separate server for Sunrise. I'm 100% firm on this, as it gets into the territory of issues with licensing agreements, and this also opens the path for abuse for others to host servers with monetary incentives or pay to win, which I do not want to happen, as it could get the whole project shut down. I am, however, considering a peer-to-peer multiplayer architecture where you could join into your friend's world and play together with them in different missions, and then once you leave, go back to your own local single player. Everyone would have their own save file with their own progress, and you would just join to play missions or destinations together. That's, however, very far in the future, so I would be careful with getting excited about this as well. While it certainly is technically possible, we need to be careful with how we make it happen so it's safe for everyone and also not breaking any kind of copyright. Now, something I also wanted to talk about, which has been a hot point of discussion in the last weeks, is the use of AI or large language models in the development of Sunrise. So my stance on AI overall is quite negative. I am someone who has always been very critical of AI and using AI, not only for environmental reasons and legal reasons or moral reasons, but also because it simply can be very easy for it to think for you and for you to forget or not learn how to do things. I do, however, think that, especially in software development, there is a very large valid use case for AI. In software development, we have already been using stuff like autocomplete for a long time. We have been copy pasting a lot of code from Stack Overflow and from documentation. And it's already always been the case that you still need to know what you're doing when pasting code together. Otherwise, you will get a bad result. And the same still holds true for AI. So I'm not against the use of AI in software development projects, but I'm very much against the use in creative projects like generating art or voice lines or videos, which I think should not be done. You can call this hypocritical if you want, but I believe that the art in software development is always the architectural side, the bigger picture, and how things go together, and not the lines of code itself. So I think AI has a very much a valid use case here, which is also something that I think some other people would agree with. So the way AI was used in Sunrise is multiple. It was definitely used on a very large scale in reverse engineering. We used AI to help us understand the game's code and map out a lot of connections and a lot of things from the game's code, which would otherwise have taken months to do by hand. We have also used AI to help in writing code and refactoring code, but all the code is reviewed by someone, and we do make sure that there's at least some standard of quality. I know the code quality right now is a bit lower than some are maybe used to in other projects, because it's a huge code base and a huge undertaking. There is some code that maybe could be better, could be a bit more transparent, and we're working on that on the side as well. But with how rapidly things are changing right now, there's not really a point in doing a huge review and refactor if half the code is going to be gone in a few weeks anyways and replaced by new code. So keep that in mind. I will also call out that you should always be responsible when using AI to help with code or write code, because this can cause you to produce unsafe code or code that is not of good quality. You should be able to understand what the AI does. You should be able to analyze the result and see for yourself if the quality is good and if it's safe. You should not use the AI to do something that you aren't capable of yourself. You can use it to speed up the process, but you shouldn't rely on it. I myself have extensive history in reverse engineering games. I've been reversing games for years at this point, and even before that, I have a long history in developing different kinds of software, working with different languages. So I do very much know what I'm doing here, and I can check and make sure the result is at least somewhat high quality. Now, moving on from that, I also want to talk about the current capabilities of Sunrise. So, as I've already showed you, we can get some kind of debugging information here, which will show, for example, the different spawns for squads, which do have data in the game files already. And then, for example, I could search up the gunsmith here and spawn him in. This is exactly the same spawning as in a live game, which is caused by a mission script. Only difference, the animations are not live right now. We can also do the same for Zavala, or I believe Shax. So this is actually the first step for getting mission scripts running. Now the other capabilities that are being worked on right now is a full investment system, being able to switch stuff around in here, do everything as you would normally, all that kinds of stuff. As you can see in the current build, a lot of this is still not functional, but all of that should come along pretty quickly because it's all kind of the same system. And the last capability that we've already added is package mods, which is still very early in development. So I would not care about that yet unless you're very technically knowledgeable about this game. But we have already found ways to unpack packages, edit stuff, repack them, generate patches, and so on. There will be a modding support for the game in the future, but right now it's mainly just for testing and playing around with and figuring things out. So let's talk about goals for Sunrise. As I've already said, our goal has shifted once again, and we're aiming for a more complete experience. The picture that I have is that in a few months that we'll have somewhat complete mission scripting support. What this means is that for every activity, for every destination in the game, we will have an SDK that's automatically generated from the game files that contains all the data of that mission, which allows you to write a Lua script to recreate the functionality of that mission, either like the original or in your own way. We will then try to create a repository of all the missions that people have recreated and merge it into the main Sunrise, while custom missions would stay as extra mods. The other thing I am envisioning in maybe a couple more months would be a peer-to-peer architecture where you can join your friends and play these missions together. This is, however, still very far out, and there could be unknown roadblocks or other things that hold it up or make it impossible. So do not get too excited, but this is what I'm aiming for personally. I also do want to have a quick word with you about how this project has been going so far. I have personally spent the last month or around that basically working on this project every second of free time that I had. And I will continue working on it a lot, but I do have other commitments, so my involvement will slow down a little bit. Instead of spending maybe 16 hours on my Sunday working on this project, I will maybe only spend 10 or 12 and play some games with my friends in the other 4 hours or take care of some stuff that I should be taking care of outside of the game. So expect progress from me to slow down a little bit over the next weeks, but I'm definitely not going to stop working on it. Aside from that, as you know, the AI usage in this project is also quite heavy, so I have spent this month around 500 euros on the project out of my own pocket. There is no kind of investment or goals for the project. None of us have any kind of promise that we bring to you. We're not collecting money for anything, and I will never do that. I believe that we cannot guarantee anything with this project. We can only guarantee what we've already provided, and I don't think it's fair to ask money for something like this. I truly believe that making open source software is the way to go, giving it to everyone free of charge, and if someone else wants to do something more with that, they are free to do so. I do, however, have personal expenses, and aside from this project, just as an open source developer, I do have some ways to support me personally, which will also be linked in the description. I don't want to push on this too much, and it's up to your own discretion. You don't have to give me anything, and the project will always be available for free and open source for everyone. I also want to mention here about the usage of AI, that I believe we're definitely inside of an AI bubble or AI boom right now. These prices, as I've said, around 500 euros of AI usage for this month, has given me a true API cost or token cost in the tens of thousands, which is insane to think about. This company is spending thousands upon thousands so that I can use the AI for a few hundred. And I don't believe that this is a sustainable business model. And I think prices will hike up very extremely over the next months or years. Nobody can really say when, but that's just my personal opinion. So once that happens, we'll also have progress slow down, of course, because we can't use AI that easily anymore. But I believe there's still some time until this happens. I truly believe we are in kind of a golden age with the large language models right now, how cheap it is to use. So we will see what happens with that. And that's about it. If you have any further questions about the direction of Sunrise or how you can contribute, feel free to join the Discord, also down in the description. If you need a tutorial on how to install Sunrise, there will also be a link in the description for a video Bresci made, which I think is quite good. If you want to support me, you can also like the video, subscribe, and put a star on the GitHub repository. That shows that people care, and it helps me feed the video to more people so we can reduce the spread of misinformation about the project. All right, I will see everyone in the next update, and I hope you enjoyed this little news update from me.